Have you ever fallen in love with someone and give them a piece of your heart? How about a place? Have you ever been to a country and left a piece of your heart there? What if it's your home country where you grew up? That is exactly my experience growing up in Vietnam and living in Canada right now. I'm sure there are many others who can relate to this experience of living between two worlds or even more. That's why I want to share my own perspective on it and talk about the things we can do to find home and peace in this internal conflict. I was born in Vietnam and I grew up in Vietnam for the biggest chunk of my life. And suddenly at 18 years old, I had the urge to go out and explore the world. As a teenager, I was super excited to explore Canada and also myself because there's this new freedom that I've gained being here alone. And I quickly found myself falling in love with Canada and giving a part of my heart to this country. Moving from Vietnam to Canada created a problem that I didn't anticipate. It created within me a separation. One side is me from Vietnam, who has all of these loving people, family and friends, and that's a foundation for me to start my life as an adult. On the other side is my Canada self, who has done a lot of work to understand herself as well as growing into the adult that she is today. And she also has found for herself new connections, people whom she could count on and consider as families. And because the two cultures are very different, I also find myself switching back and forth between the beliefs. There are something that I can relate to being a Vietnamese, but there are also things that I disagree and I would gravitate towards the Canadian culture a little bit more. And because these two parts don't get along really well, it creates a lot of difficult feelings, but the biggest one that I feel almost every day, especially during this time, is guilt. Living between two worlds, meaning that I'll miss out a lot of things in both places. I feel like I am betraying my family and my country for being here, while at home there are so many things that's going on, making me feel like I'm trying to stay as far away as I can from my roots, which is a very difficult feeling to navigate. I also feel like I cannot be fully present here in Canada when my head and my heart is heading towards my home country. And I feel bad for enjoying my life, enjoying the safety and the freedom that I have here, that I cannot immerse myself fully into these experiences here. Because this is a very personal experience. I sometimes feel very lonely, and I know that there are a lot of people who experience this kind of loneliness as well. You could be immigrants, third culture kids, nomads, people who have more than one home, or you're just living in between worlds in terms of professions or relationship. I know that a lot of people go through this, but because it is an uncomfortable topic, and what if you bring it up and someone dismiss it or think that you're thinking too much into it, then that would feel very discouraging, right? There are also a lot of people who cannot relate to this experience because they haven't had that in their life. I've seen a lot of comments online on posts of immigrants sharing their experience. People saying, if moving here was your choice, then why don't you make a choice to go back home? Stop complaining. Things like that. And honestly, I don't have a good answer for it. I think it definitely felt like a choice, but a lot of it, for me, I was in a position where I cannot help but choose to leave and go to Canada. And because it's such a sensitive matter and we don't get to talk with each other about it. And there's a lot of feelings of insecurity, confusion, something like an internal conflict. It's separation, right? It's being apart from your roots, feeling unsafe, feeling without a foundation, a base to support you, to have your back. There are two parts within you are fighting. They are framing each other for this miserable situation that you are in. And I think that's why it doesn't feel good. I think feeling like home gives you a sense of security, of safety. You feel loved, you feel belong, and that's the feeling that everyone wants. So how can you even feel like home when you cannot make up your mind and categorize yourself into one made of box that society believes in, right? Well, if you really sit with yourself in the situation, something you may notice, the tough feeling that you feel, guilt, it doesn't really come from outside. For me, my parents has always been very encouraging about my decision to live in Canada, as well as other people. There are people who disagree with my decisions. They might question it or judge it, but their love and care outweighs their worries and judgment towards me. Maybe you're in a situation where everyone around you condemned you for your decision, then that's definitely very hard for you to believe that you've made the right decision. But those voices also reinforce the negative feeling that you already have within you. I'm asking you to sit with this and realize that all of these feelings comes from within you, because when you realize that the lack of home comes from within you, if there is a presence of home, that is within you too. And that's all we need. We cannot control a lot of things in life, but whatever within, we can understand, learn to live with it, or change it. So there are 3 things that I'd like to do when I want to feel at home, even when living in between two worlds. But before we get into that, I'd like to read to you a quote that I think a lot when I come across difficult life decisions. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor. Another fig was E.G., the amazing editor. And another fig was Europe and Africa and South America. And another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila, and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. And another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion, and beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of these figs I would choose. When you live in between worlds like me, at times you get stuck in a cycle of wondering what your life could have been if you chose to stay, or if you were to be born in the second place. There's something very appealing about an illusion of security like that. And when you are deep within those illusions and what ifs and questions, it feels like it's impossible for you to get out. Realistically, there has to be a period of grieving. I know I did. I had grieved a lot. I cried, I wailed. These are very normal reactions to such a difficult situation that you have to go through, especially when for a human being, safety is of utmost importance. When you don't feel safe, it feels like the world is falling apart, even though intellectually it seems like it's such a small problem compared to all the world problems. But in between those instances, I can also naturally get into a state of calmness. And that's where we will implement the 3 steps to find home within yourself. So the first thing I want you to do is to reconnect with yourself. Reconnect to the present. If you want to sit and think about the what ifs, the illusions in your mind, then you cannot do anything about it, right? Because those illusions doesn't exist in the real life. It only exists in your mind. When you're able to grab that sense of calmness, you hold on to it and be physically present for yourself. You do anything that you need to do in a moment. Maybe you've cried too much and now you need to sleep. You need to rehydrate yourself. You need to eat. Anything that can help you fulfill your needs in the present. Sometimes it could mean moving on with your life, because when we're in a situation like this, there's not a lot of things we can do to resolve the situation. Living in between worlds might just become our identity, and at that point, how can we get rid of something that has been part of ourselves, right? How does reconnecting with yourself help? It's about state of mind. So when you're fragmented, you have different selves that are in conflict with each other. Obviously, you don't feel safe. You'd want to get into an integrated state of mind where you are a one true self. And the one true self is the one that's sitting there with you in this time and space. So by reconnecting with yourself, you get a chance to meet the one who's actually in control of everything. Once you are in touch with yourself, you can move on to the next step, which is to reframe. I want you to talk to yourself using open and loving languages such as allow, understand, and accept. Here's something I say to myself these days when things are hard. I was born in Vietnam. Now I live in Canada. Both are very big parts of me, and they can live within me in harmony if I allow them to. My experience in Vietnam enhanced my life in Canada, and being in Canada helps strengthen my connection to Vietnam. I have the best of both worlds. I don't need to choose either one of them. I can choose to be me. They are both me. I accept that I will miss out a lot of things in Vietnam and in Canada, but what I won't miss out on is me, my own experience. I am here as I miss Vietnam. I'm here as I enjoy Canada. I'm here with me. I also understand that it's hard to accept sometimes. I do my best, and when I fail to accept, I continue to accept that I am only human. I allow myself to cry, to share this grief with other people, because all experience is better shared. The point of this exercise is for you to get into a habit of treating yourself nicely, to use very allowing languages instead of forbidding and blaming, so that you can shift from a blaming perspective to a more understanding perspective. And the last thing, but also the most important thing for us to do, is to find ways to relate with each other. You could share your story to other people who might be able to understand it. I could share it with my family or my friends, and even though they don't understand the full scope of it, I know that they would be able to share with me some part of it. Also, I feel like we sometimes may forget to give credits to the people around us. They can understand and can withstand a lot of things about us. I thought that because I'm away for a long time, my family would forget me, and because we didn't get to share a lot of experience together, then that trust would be lost, right? As silly as the thought was, it felt really real to me. But when I came back to Vietnam, I felt truly loved and accepted. I felt very welcomed, and though everyone was aware that we are apart for a long time, all we can focus on is to build more memories, to create more stories together, and do our best to savor this moment together. It could also be being truthful about how you're feeling to the people who might not understand this, right? Because after all, we're all human. I don't have to grow up in the same country as you to understand the human experience that you have to go through. There are some universal languages, right? That's love, that's compassion, empathy, and just good basic human manners. And by doing this, you're also allowing yourself to be truthful to anyone that you might encounter. And if you find it hard to take that first step to climb over that wall to talk to someone, then you can always talk to me, leave a comment or text me. I obviously have made the first step to open myself up, so I feel like this might be an easier way if you want to share to someone. You will never be completely at home again because part of your heart will always be elsewhere. That is the price you pay for the richness of loving and knowing people in more than one place. When you identify yourself as someone who comes from two different cultures, it's something that you live with. The feeling sticks with you no matter where you go, no matter how much you want to run away. You cannot escape yourself. It is a heavy weight. There's some days that I feel good about it. There are days when things are rough and you just can't help but feel heavy. And in those times, I want you to try out the 3 steps that I mentioned. When you give a piece of your heart to someone or some place that you love, you receive an equal part. And that makes your heart diverse, makes it beautiful and meaningful. I hope you can acknowledge these different parts within yourself and honor them by talking about it, expressing it. I can't wait for other people to see those parts of yourself and love them, accept them as much as you do.